So thank you, Claude, and thank you, Kat and Kenneth. So now we start the Q&A time. I have a question from Claire Fox, Emulation as a Service Infrastructure in the chat. So question for Kat and Kenneth, what is the best way to contribute resources, PDFs, videos, etc. to software stories? Maybe add resources or references in a Wikidata item or upload content to Wikimedia Commons. So I don't know, I mean, I've seen you already answered, but maybe for the people in the room, that could be a good way to reiterate the answers.
Yeah, adding statements to Wikidata items related to, is the sound okay, Elisabetta, or is it still too quiet?
Yes, now it is. Now it is.
Adding statements to Wikidata items and also uploading media to Wikimedia Commons, specifically uploading it into the category related to the relevant piece of software. Those are excellent ways to contribute more information and more material to software stories.
Okay, so is there any questions from the public in the room? Yes, a comment by Roberto.
Okay, so I'm pretty happy that Claude was very, how can I say, candid. Candid is a good English term about the experience. If you ask Carlo, I think he was more polite, but the experience is very similar. So let me. I was polite. I'm sorry, I'm making enemies of my friends. So but the point is that you remember what we said yesterday. It took us actually 6 months of experimentation and work to come up with this process just for SWHAP. And then another long time for Morane, Katherine, Kenneth, etc., to come up with the software stories approach that involves many errors, as Claude has shown. So as somebody mentioned or commented yesterday in the chat, this just shows that there is a place for people technically experienced to come up and take a place as curators or helpers of curators, the same way as I do not expect everybody that is in an academic to be an archivist. There is a full-time job as an archivist or a librarian. I mean, this is why we have a librarian and archivist, so you do not expect everybody to become a librarian and archivist. The same is happening here. So we need more people with expertise that can sit down with people like Claude or people like Carlo and others and actually go with them through the process of making all this work. If you look at this technology that has been used, you need to be confident and proficient in using Git, which is a version control system. So for developers like the people in my team, or for me, which I'm an old guy, but I started using it 10 years ago, it seems a no-brainer. But somebody that has never used it, well, it's a hell of a thing to discover. Okay, what the hell is a branch? What is a commit? What does it mean I do a rebase? What does it mean I copy a branch from one place to another? I mean, it's a lot to learn. And then also in the other process, how you use the archival in software heritage, how you use archival in GitHub, etc. So we are assuming a lot of knowledge. So this should be taken over by people who are specialized in this particular kind of process, coming in and helping people. Or at least we should provide a tutorial, a live tutorial, videos with tutorial like this. So again, do not expect us at Software Heritage to solve all the problems of the world. We are not going to do it for you. We are just providing key infrastructure, and we need help from people outside. And this is an occasion to ask for help, to actually come in, see how the process can be improved, explain better. And again, I think there is a space for a new kind of job. I mean, digital curators for software. That is something that was not on the radar many years ago, but some of the people in this virtual assembly already started working on this job of virtual curators, I mean, digital curators for software.
Can I give my comment on this?
Yeah,
okay. So this is particular for the software stories. What I think is, yes, for the time being, there is no manual for it, so that can be an issue. But I think that it's something that can be a little bit awkward when you start navigating it, but then instead it becomes clearer and clearer the more you are devoting time to it. Of course, like everything, you cannot just you cannot just expect that the first day you arrive and you do all the work. There is some learning time you have to spend on it, and I think that documentation can be an important part and space for improvement in the process. And actually, I also saw Claude doing more than he said he has done. He's very humble, but he also contributed to his part of the software story on the software story of Scilab. But in my personal experience, if I can give some kind of feedback, is that there are two, I mean, as you explained, Kat, there are two different, I'm not gonna use the word moment because then it can be confusing, but there are two different things. So this is, I think, something that needs to be clear. So one part of the software story is directly linked to Wikidata, and in some sense is automatic. Whatever you do, you add pieces of information on Wikidata, they are automatically fetched and used. And there is another part with which is more similar to what is the work of a curator in a museum, because we can also think about the software stories as some kind of, online exhibition about the software. So that part, so in some sense, maybe the first part related to Wikidata is the same job as an archivist, and the second part is more something related, like the work of a museum curator. So, and that is the part where you do not just dig. So the work I have done so far with Claude, and it's not finished yet, was not just about, checking everything about the source code, but also try and find something that as historians might need to tell the whole story, which is not just the source code, and not just academic papers, but also sometimes would be useful to see where the places where where Scilab was developed, or people at work, or people at conferences. And there is a lot of research beyond that, which is not just a single picture, but finding also the copyright, finding who else can we. So we recorded. We spent 2 days talking and recording interviews. And this was another part that is not automatically something you can do with Wikidata, but it was some kind of interview oral history specifically focused on Scilab. And the nice thing was that when I was in this beautiful chalet in Courchevel, I discovered that Claude's wife actually wrote a manual with exercise for high schools in France. And so I managed to interview her as well. So in some sense, these processes, it's something that at the same time digs into materials but also shows them. So there are several layers to these software stories. So this was my personal experience. And yes, I'm sure that with the little bit more of documentation and specifically clarifying the parts that are, let's say Wikidata, Wikidata reign, and the parts that are more the curator part. I think this process would be a little bit more straightforward. And again, yes, there is a learning process that you have to have. I mean, I think not just with this, with everything in life. So yes, so this is my experience.
Thank you so much. I also would, just to elaborate on that too, from the front end perspective and the actual interface of the application, we really wanted to make sure that none of that hard work was lost and find more creative areas where we can get different visualizations, make all of that hard work very compelling for users and for viewers of the stories. And so if anyone has any ideas on different ways that we can present this information, we're also very open to those suggestions. And our source code for the front end itself is all open source, and we show like the exact source code for how every moment visualization is built, so that we can extend that similar to how we did with the software heritage moment itself, so that we can really make sure that as we're doing both the automation work on Wikidata and the curation work, that we can really paint the full picture of both of those things coming together in one seamless experience.
So there is a question from Jurek Oberhauser. Please come here. From University of Freiburg, and yes, come, sit down.
All right.
Sit down.
Yeah, just want to add a point to that. I'm Jurek from the part of the development team of EASY. And what came to mind for me is there any incentive to do like an interactive part for these software stories? Because for me, coming from the emulation side, I'm kind of missing okay, and here's the link where you could try the software by yourself, as like the final piece to have all this information, have the source code, have all this background information, how the software was created. And I think the final step, if possible, obviously, could be an interactive experience. Are there any plans to do that, or what are your thoughts about that?
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that suggestion, Jurek. That is something that we could definitely explore in the future. And the EASY team would definitely be a team with a lot of knowledge about how to do that.
Okay, so I hope this is going to, yes, I hope this is going to be maybe the first contact of a future collaboration. That could be very interesting, at least for us. So there is a question there. Okay, 3 questions. Good. So let's start with Piero Monipun. Come here, please.
It's just an element of an answer to your question.
Yes.
Developing emulators for old vintage computers started very early in the historiography of computing, and as far as I remember, one of the very first emulator was written by Martin Campbell Kelly in Britain around 1990, and it was an EDSAC emulator. It was the emulator of what was the very first operational computer in history, the EDSAC computer developed in Cambridge in 1949. And it was possible. You can still find new versions, I suppose, of the EDSAC emulator on the internet. There was an emulator of the ENIAC, the American ENIAC, and when we celebrated the ENIAC 40th anniversary in Philadelphia back in 1995, there was also a microchip designed following the architecture of the ENIAC. Now, if we go back to the preservation of software, if I may, I would like to mention 2 rather sad cases of scarcity, of poverty. It's the 2 main digital networks that were developed in France in the 1970s, Scilab and Teletel, the network behind the Minitel network. To my knowledge, we don't have much software from these 2 projects. About 10 years ago, with Mark Weber and the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, we conducted a series of inquiries
interviews with all developers of the Minitel and Teletel system. We could retrieve documents, we could save some hardware, but we are very poor regarding the software, this very important network. And the same goes for the Scilab networks. I just sent an email to 3 of the developers of the Scilab network to ask them if they had anything, even an interchange, a piece of software written in assembler for mini computer. But it's well, more generally, it's an example of the scarcity of historical sources. We must realize that if we go in another period of time from the Greek antiquity, we have less than 10% of the whole mass that was written and published, that was copied several times. Even Aristotle and Plato, we don't have all their works. So welcome in the world of history and scarcity of sources.
Thank you. So from the public, we've got Carlo Montangero.
There is an answer? No.
Sorry?
There is an answer or no?
Okay. I would like to go back to the personal experience and lesson learned and wish list with the software stories. And in my experience with the software story, I got 2 points. One is that you must understand what you are doing when you access Wikidata, Wikipedia, Wikicommons, etc., because there is a community behind there, and a very reactive one. So if you do the wrong thing, the next day you will have it destroyed, etc. So this is something that you must understand and have in mind. And the second thing is that, I mean, at least when I got there, I tried to do things in a sense interactively and putting one thing and then the other one, etc. Well, I think that's the wrong approach. You need to have a kind of a storyboard where you think ahead what you want to build and what you want to present. And then once you have organized everything, you have collected all the needed information, then you can go there and put it online and hope that you will not have a reaction. And so in the wish list, a nice graphical interface which tells you what you need to put rather than to write code meta things would be nice. Okay, that's the thank you.
Thank you very much. Captain Kenneth, would you like to reply to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a lot of room for us to be able to build out more visualizations on the curation side as well, and building out, you know, a very rich way to go through adding content to not only the story, but also content to Wikidata. And as Kat demonstrated, we can build out forms for, you know, really providing a very rigid structure around the curation metadata that we want to track, so that it's already in the format that the Wikidata community or the Wikimedia community would expect. And so that hopefully that doesn't discourage anyone from contributing to Wikidata. But oftentimes with any wiki-based project, there's the common tension between being too adaptive for any possibility in terms of the data versus opening the door for vandalism. And so a lot of people really try to make sure that they're constantly monitoring the data that's going through, so that if there is any vandalism or strays from a convention, that is resolved quickly. Yeah, we can also build out a lot of the ways to make sure that those play nicely and show up in stories in a very elegant way.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think in some sense there are some, you know, repeating things that are common for, because we are not just talking about something that is huge as Wikidata, but specific software. So maybe there will be, you know, some things that could be not automized, but, you know, like organized in some kind of checklist. I'm working on that actually, so I will be happy to share this with you. So are there any questions from the public in the room or from online? Okay, perfectly on time to start our roundtable.